Farmlings, the other day I was doom scrolling my YouTube homepage as I typically do when I came across something incredibly interesting. A video made by a YouTuber much bigger than me named KTO talking about which NFL team was historically the worst at drafting players. And well, the draft in the NFL is incredibly important because if you draft well, you're gonna be historically a consistent contender. And if you draft poorly, you're gonna be diddly doggy pretty much forever. And well, I started thinking to myself, we have an incredibly similar situation to this in Counter-Strike. What makes or breaks a lot of teams in this scene is how well they do roster moves. Recently, we had a roster mania that was, man, not a lot happened in the top 10, but a lot did happen for the teams below the top 10. Roster moves in Counter-Strike are incredibly important. So I had the genius idea of just stealing this YouTube idea, putting it into Counter-Strike, and instead of drafting, we're doing it with roster moves. But it's not as simple as you might think. Me being the little guy I was, I didn't know how I was going to figure out how to even possibly grade who makes the best and worst roster moves until I made a genius level formula. A formula that I have plugged every single team that's been somewhat relevant into, and it popped out a score for them. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Garmour, what? Why would we trust you with this magical little formula to tell us which teams are good and bad at making roster moves? Well, believe it or not, fellas, your boy was in AP Calculus in high school. I ended up getting an F and the teacher had to boost my test grade so I could pass with a D, but I still took the class, so I know what I'm talking about. Listen, this formula takes into account the player on the team after they joined, rating versus top 20. It takes into account how quickly you were benched. It takes into account how quickly you won tournaments after joining the team, how quickly you won majors after joining the team, and your individual awards and accolades. And lastly, if you were poached by a bigger team, you're also getting bonus points because how can I punish you for playing so well that you get poached by a better team? That sounds like a good signing to me. I then went through 26 different teams, went through every single roster move they've made near CS2. A couple teams I did do like a couple months before because they were preparing for the switch over to CS2, so I still counted it. But yeah, if you made any roster move during CS2 besides this most recent roster mania, because you've barely even seen those players play on those teams yet, it will be counted in here and averaged out for a total score for the team and organization. Now, the best thing you can possibly do, what my magical little formula likes the most, is teams who have a lot of success after making a minimum amount of roster moves. It likes teams that stick with their players and have success with the ones they've signed. I feel like that makes sense. And that's why Vitality absolutely dwarfs every other single team by a fucking mile. You see, the baseline for this formula is 12, okay? Keep the number 12 in mind. If you're at 12, that's like a fine roster move. You don't really help the team, but you also didn't really hurt the team with the roster move. Anything above 12 is good. Anything below 12 is bad. And well, Vitality got a score of 63.57. Holy mother of God. But when you look at the roster moves they've made since pretty close to the start of CS2, it makes sense as to why they are so unfathomably high. They have signed 3 players: Flames, Mezzi, and Rops. And every single one of these signings was an absolute fucking home run. I mean, slam dunk type roster moves. There was not a single wasted roster move since CS2 has started for Vitality. So it makes sense as to why their score is so unbelievably high. And if you want to know the individual scores, Flames Edition was the lowest at a 51.44, which when you consider the average is 12 is still fucking unbelievable. Then Mezzi at 54.34, and the second most valuable addition out of any single player that I put into this formula is Rops, who had a score of 84.92. 84.92. And I mean, it makes fucking sense as to why he is so high. He placed number 3 on the HLTV Top 20 this year. He joins Vitality, immediately starts winning 8 trillion S-tier tournaments, and they win back-to-back majors. I mean, my God, it might be the most valuable signing of all time. Except, like I said, he's placed number 2. There is one person above him. You can probably guess who it is.
Armlings? Do you see that over there?
Bro, what is that? It's been staring at me for hours. Ah! Oh, No worries. It's just that new knife that I bought from today's sponsor, Skins Monkey. Skins Monkey is an instant trading site with an incredibly large selection of skins, low commission, and an easy search filter system. Buying or trading your skins has never been easier. And if you use my link today, you can get up to $5 completely free. They also have daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways on their freebies tab, along with a 35% deposit bonus if you use code Garmour. If you want to check out Skins Monkey, scan the QR code or hit the link below. Thank you to them for sponsoring, and back to the video. The team who has made the second best roster move since CS2 was started is, of course, Spirit, with a total score of 36.61, significantly above average, way above that mark of 12. And well, it makes sense as to why they are here. A couple months before CS2 started, in preparation for the new game, they signed a new core, which was Art Frost, Donk, and Zontix, all from Spirit Academy. And while Art Frost was kind of a flop, his score only came out to a 5.19. Donk and Zontix were home runs. They were phenomenal moves. Donk is the best graded roster move since the start of CS2, beating out Robs with his total score of a 97.85. Just a chill 85 above average. Good work, Donk. But like, I feel like you also can't argue with it. Donk has been a transcendent player since CS2 was started. I feel like he does deserve this #1 spot, even if Robs has one more with Vitality. Anyway, Zontix also has a phenomenal score of a 32.53. And well, they also went on to add Shiro from Cloud9, which was another slam dunk move by Spirit, as the Shiro addition was graded as a 48.42. And the last two moves we have for the team are Zwei and Tanir, and this is where things get a little bit scuffed. Because like I said, the formula likes if you join a team and start winning, because it assumes that if you're joining a team and then you immediately start winning, you're probably a part of the reason as to why. And well, in Zwei's case, he wasn't really. He just joined a team with Donk and Shiro. But he still gets credit for the tournament wins, as his score is a 23.79. I mean, I just even double checked it to make sure that is actually true. And yes, Zwei is rated a 23.79. But to be fair, in my defense, if we don't count the two S-tier tournaments he won, his score is a 4.74, significantly below average. It was a bad move, but he won 2 tournaments, so he gets boosted like crazy. And then Tanir is just slightly below average at an 11.88, at least up to this point. So yeah, overall, Spirit is boosted the fuck out of by Donk. And then also some slam dunk moves with Zontix and Shiro. Now, I'm not gonna go super in depth with every single team. This video would be like 8 hours long. But what I will say, what I'll say is this, Garmour family, I made a large mistake making this video. For some reason, I thought Senzu joined earlier than he did, so I just didn't count him as a move for Mongols, because I didn't think they made any moves. And well, Mongols did make a move for CS2. It was Senzu only. I don't talk about them at all in this video, but here's the graph with them if you want to see. They're the 4th best team at making roster moves. HLTV doesn't count Control S, so that didn't dock their grade at all. Here's some other teams I talked about that I didn't think were relevant. And yeah, that's it. Really apologize for this, Mongols Nation. Back to the video. Is out of every single team that I tested, there was a total of 10 teams that had on average made good roster moves. And after Vitality and Spirit, we of course have Na'Vi, who hit a home run with the JL, Ima, and Alexi B signings. Wonderful also was a good signing. Mouse, who have made fairly great signings, in 4th place. Furia in 5th place, mostly carried by the Molodoy and Yakinder signings. G2 in 6th place with a 16.81. FaZe in 7th place with a score of 13, so they're just barely above average. But to be honest, they are almost entirely carried by Frozen and Twist. The Frozen edition was rated as a 25.36, and the Twist signing rated as a 17.64. Alish signing was not great. I counted simple because, listen, if you have roster instability and you're dysfunctional and you need someone to stand in for you, I'm gonna punish you for that. I feel like that still counts as a roster move, and so simple counts as a move. And listen, FaZe, you can't even complain because Hades was also counted for G2, and they still got over 3 points higher than you, so you did it to yourself. Also, Jacob signing wasn't even that bad. It's rated just slightly above average at a 12.24, so good work, fellas. Then after FaZe, we have Heroic at a 12.95. They consistently make really good signings, and their entire team just gets poached. They don't really make great signings and start winning tournaments like other teams, but you know, if they're gonna be just a player factory where they just keep pumping out players for other teams to grab, I mean, you're gonna get rewarded for it because you're making good moves. You guys might not believe it, we have Falcons at a 12.89. You may have thought that Falcons was gonna be the lowest ranked team on this entire list, that they make the worst roster moves. And let's just get one thing straight. Falcons Falcons has made a lot of dog shit roster moves, but due to their infinite money, at some point they were bound to make some good ones. The Nico signing was a 22.32. Who would have guessed? The Dexter signing was actually rated fairly highly at a 21.06 just because of one unbelievable tournament run. I think that is fair considering that is the only tournament Falcons have won, and it was because of Dexter. Kixon was an above average signing. Testes has been an above average signing. Mondesi was a phenomenal signing, being their highest rated roster move at a 27. And the Kioske move has also been great at a 13.8. So as of recently, they have made a bunch of pretty good moves, even though it started horrifically, with their worst move being MHL and Simple. Similar to FaZe, yes, I'm including the Simple portion of this. Boros was a horrific move at a 7.24, Snappy at a 9.16, Senpaius at a 9.54, Madden at a 10.7, and surprisingly, Magisk was just slightly above average because he was with the team when they won their tournament, even if individually he wasn't phenomenal on the team. But yeah, early days Falcons, horrific, probably would have been ranked the worst team here, but their recent roster moves that have been on paper, like obviously these moves are going to work out, have boosted them quite a bit. And then after Falcons, we have the last team that it makes above average roster moves, and they might be a sleeper team that you wouldn't expect. It's actually Legacy. They for the most part do make really good moves, and I feel like that makes sense considering how they were pretty solid through a majority of last year, even winning a tournament, even though it doesn't boost any of the players because it was only an A tier tournament, not an S tier one. But even still, it does look like Legacy is on the up and up, and that's because they've made good roster moves. NQZ was a phenomenal roster move. He was good enough to get poached by Pain. Lado and Dumao have been great roster moves. They missed pretty badly on Coldzera, but other than that, Sadzin, Nisama, and Lux all have been very solid roster moves for the team, and well, I mean, they're getting rewarded for it. There was a Stewie stand-in portion, and that would be rated the worst roster move on this entire list at a 0.51 if I counted it. They were playing in like a qualification tournament. He didn't play any real teams. It's not being counted. For the most part, Legacy have made phenomenal moves. And I guess I probably should clarify a little bit more as well. Why would I count the Simple on FaZe and Falcons tenure if I'm not counting Stewie on Legacy? Because while Stewie didn't really play a lot of real teams, he did play Liquid that were ranked in the top 20, so theoretically I should be counting him, but I do feel like it is different situations. Stewie came to stand in for 3 games for a qualification tournament and never played again. When Simple played for Falcons, they were fully planning on using him for that entire major run if they made it through the RMR, which they didn't. And I mean, he played an entire major on FaZe and IEM Dallas before that, so I feel like it is kind of different situations. You can get mad at me if you want, but I feel like I just wanted to glaze Legacy because they deserve it. They've made good roster moves, and I feel like Stewie wasn't real enough of a roster move for me to count. Now we can start getting into a little bit of hating territory. Most teams that I looked at have not made good roster moves since the start of CS2, but the best of the worst is FlyQuest, who placed number 10 on my list with a score of 11.24, just slightly below average. And I mean, it kind of makes sense. They kind of started at the border of tier 1 and have just kind of fallen off month after month and have gotten just worse. Their 3 roster moves are Regali, JKS, and Netic. Not a single one was ranked positively. Regali and JKS were both tied for being slightly below average at 11.76, and Netic is a 10.2. So, you know, FlyQuest, you've just made slightly below average roster moves and have just gotten worse instead of better. Then we have other teams that have made pretty mad roster moves. Right below them is Gamer Legion. You can probably assume why Gamer Legion is here. They have made some slam dunk moves. The first one people forget about is Snacks. He was originally on this team and apparently he was so good, G2 just had to have him, so bonus points for getting poached. Then after that, phenomenal signing with Flamus, who got poached by VP. Phenomenal signing of PR and Rez, but they really get punished of their signing of Andu and Kersey. Hypex also hasn't been great, but at least they gave him a longer leash than they gave Kersey. He had one of the lowest scores out of any roster move that has been made in CS2 with a score of a 1.92. After them is Saw. After them at 13th place is Liquid. You might be surprised Liquid is this far up. You probably thought they were going to be one of the bottom 5 teams. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was surprised as well. But at the end of the day, their signing of Twist was pretty good, even if they didn't win anything with him. He didn't get any points for getting poached by FaZe because it was like him and Alish got traded. It was a weird situation, so I don't really I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, their 2 worst roster moves have been Katie and Skulls. Other than that, they've made a bunch of bad ones, but nothing super unfathomably bad. It's not like they're making a new move every 3 months. At least they stick with their bad roster moves, and I mean, they still get some bonus points for that. Then after Liquid is Virtus Pro, then Imperial, then M80, then Fnatic, then Astralis at number 18, then NRG, then NIP, Aurora at 21, which Aurora's kind of weird because their only roster move has been Joda. So it's like, what do you want me to do with that? If you've only made one roster move, it's kind of weird to compare that. Aurora is in 21st place, but it is from one guy. And then we officially get to our bottom 5 teams, the worst 5 teams at making roster moves since CS2 has released. The first team we have in our bottom 5 is Pain. This honestly surprised me because I didn't think Pain was making that bad of roster moves. But when we look at it, they have only had 2 players they've added that have been rated positively. And that is Lux at a 12.72 and NQZ at a 12.24. Every other single roster move they have made since CS2 started has been negative. Cassin was very bad at a 2.43. Kawa's at an 11.28. Nissim at a 5.44. Nizen at a 0.93. Snow at an 11.16. David at an 11.76, DGT at an 8.12, and the lowest rated roster move of this entire thing, of this entire video, is Demo at a 0.74. 0.74. Now, I do kind of feel for Pain because this isn't all their fault. They wanted to keep Nissim, but he got recalled on his loan back to Shark, so that's only half of their fault. Then they had kind of roster instability with Nizen, and then they had to add Demo to the active roster. For Pain, it's been more of roster dysfunction than just overly horrific roster moves. So I do kind of feel for them. And if we do take out the Nissim stuff where he got recalled back on a loan, they do jump up to 9.27, but I included it, so congratulations, Pain. Did you guys know that shortly after the release of CS2, Big Clan hit a peak of number 13 ranked in the world? Recently, they have been down in the low 40s and even high 50s. They have had an unfathomable fall off over the past couple of years, and a big part of this is due to just how horrific their roster moves have been. Out of all the teams I've measured, Big is the 4th worst at making roster moves with a total score of 7.67, having made 8 roster moves and only 1 being rated positively, and that is JDC, barely at a 12.12. Everything else has been a mess, and it's mostly because we just keep bringing in fuckers from the academy team just to fill holes in the roster. There's like no plan for this team. I don't know what they're thinking, man. They bring in Sin from Big Academy for a little bit. That's only rated at a 7.24. Prosus at a 4.64. Montu, they want to go international with the op again. That didn't work. It's rated at 8.6. We bring Searson back for some reason. That's rated a 9.56. Regan was a disaster add at a 4.33. We bring in Hyped as the next opera that we're going to try. That didn't work. It's rated at an 8.55. And Kyubi, who is rated at a 6.33. Every single move besides one that this team has made has been a complete disaster. We got some players leaving and then rejoining and then going to the academy team and rejoining. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And well, this is a huge reason as to why they have completely plummeted in ranking since the start of CS2. It has just been complete roster instability. Maybe now with Grix, Blameth, Favin, JDC, and Tabson, they can finally do something. And I mean, at this point, I feel like it really can't get any worse. In at the 3rd worst spot, we have MIBR. We're going back to Brazil, baby. MIBR is a total score of a 7.42. And this is mostly due in part to quite a few disaster class moves they have made fairly recently. Right before CS2 started, they signed Drop and Safe, which were both meh signings. They were just right below average. Then they really fucked up with Luka Ozi, fucked up significantly worse with Nyx. Klim has been a fine signing so far. He hasn't played great against top 20 teams, which is what a lot of this is based off of. In tier 2, he's been great. In tier 1, not so much. And down there with Nyx, we have Kickert, who was also a disaster class signing at a 1.98. If you noticed, MIBR did not make a single good signing. They didn't have a single one that was even at average at 12. So, you know, keep up the good work, fellas. Keep Insani in jail. Maybe the team will work out with LNZ. Then the team we have in the 2nd spot, who has made the 2nd worst roster moves, is BC Game. Good work, BC Game. Keep simple in jail. Phenomenal work, guys. Now, this is a little late for me to be mentioning this, and you may have already even noticed in the video that I'm not including some roster moves that happen for these teams. If a player joined and did not play any top 20 teams, I did not count that player as joining the team, because in my mind, if you're not playing any top 20 teams, you're not relevant in tier 1 at all. I'm just not going to count you. Which means that BC Game's rating theoretically could have been even lower than this, because they made a lot of disaster class signings at the start when their team first formed, but they didn't play any top 20 teams, so I didn't include them. But even with the players who did, it was still a disaster class. We have Cock Needles, who is rated at a 4.06, Prime Taps at an 11.04, Jacob at a 7.98, Knock at a 5.39, Cypher at a 4.38, and Nexa at a 10.26. Once again, not a single positively rated player, with most of them being rated around a 4 or a 5. This was by all means a disaster class. BC Game management is worse than Falcons management. Can you fucking believe it? You know, super excited to see BC Game with the roster of Simple, Electronic, and maybe the signing of the Saw Core can resolve this team of their sins, resolve management of their sins. I really think they will. I really think that move is gonna work out. And finally, the team that has made the worst roster move since CS2 has started. North America's finest. Wildcard, I mean. No wonder they had to start using ChatGPT, guys. They're literally making the worst roster moves in the whole goddamn scene. Now, this is even with a couple of their players not being counted due to them not playing top 20 teams, but it doesn't even matter. Their organization started out by signing a tier 2 North American team that they kept for approximately 4 months and then cut everyone. Every single player on that team has been rated as a bad signing. They had Darty for a little bit. He was rated at 3.18. JBA rated an 11.52. Sonic an 11.4. Stanislaus signing was rated at a 10.44. He is then benched, and I punished them for benching Stanislaw and adding him back to the active roster afterwards, because what the fuck are we doing? So because of the Stanislaw benching, that is rated at a 3.76. Then you have Susp at an 11.76. Fuzi, who was a fairly decent signing, but just below average at an 11.7. And then you have Fuzi benching, coming back to the active roster. That is rated at a 3.75. Friend coming in at a 1.73, and Peeping at a 7.32. And you guys might be saying, you're punishing them too much for the Stanislaw and Fuzi moves. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, even without those moves occurring, they still would be the worst rated team here at a 7.08. So they're dog shit. GM dog shit. Team making dog shit roster moves. I mean, my god. If you guys are like, Wildcard's a tier 2 team, why would I care about them, Garmour? Give me who the worst tier 1 team is. It kind of depends on what your definition of a tier 1 team is. Like, technically, then I guess it would be Pain or Aurora, even though Aurora only made 1 roster move. We can go up the list. Maybe it's Astralis for you. Maybe it's VP. Or if you want to go for a team that's like consistently in the top 10, I guess then it would be Falcons, technically. Because like Legacy, FlyQuest, Gamer Legion, Saw, Liquid VP, all those teams aren't consistently in the top 10. So I guess Falcons for tier 1 teams. For teams that are like, have been borderline tier 1, you can say Wildcard. It really depends what your definition is. I just still cannot believe the lopsidedness of this graph. You look at the back half of it, all the teams are kind of close. And then you get your first really spike big jump with Na'Vi, and then Spirit, and then Vitality just dwarfs everyone. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. This was incredibly fun for me to do. I think this stuff is interesting. I like putting narratives like into numbers and actually having it on a grading scale. And so I thought this was good. This was fun. If you guys thought this was good and fun, liking the video, subscribing, and turn notifications on. And I will see you guys later.